So I made sure I went back there again the next day and the day after that to buy booze so that they would solidify this space with somebody who buys alcohol. My deception begins at a very young age of 16. And I learned that if I go to that place, then I know I won't get carded and I can get beer. So I bought alcohol, we had this big party, and all of a sudden I felt like Superman. I could do anything. That fear that was inside me when I tried to talk to people was gone. I was the one being talked about. People were talking about all the funny things I did, the funny, crazy things I did. Over the years, those funny, crazy things would turn into embarrassing, stupid stories, stories of humiliation, embarrassment. I often say my drinking took me to some very dark places. Sometimes I made out with men. So, for a lesbian, no offense, guys. No offense to ladies who like kissing the men, but for me, that was dark. Going right down the rabbit hole on that one. And I used people. When I was active in my addiction, I would use men. You wanted to make out with me? I looked a little bit different then. I know you're looking at me like, what? With the tie and the short buzz cut. I had long hair, it was curly, I could dress up and do the feminine thing. And then I got all kinds of liquor for free. It was awesome. And I never knew I was an alcoholic because an alcoholic was described to me because my great uncle was talked about as an alcoholic. He died homeless. He was a hobo, that's what they called him. And he was penniless, and he died, drinking out of a brown paper bag under a bridge in Brantford, Ontario. That was my, that's an alcoholic? I can't be an alcoholic. First of all, I'm a woman. And secondly, I'm a lesbian. And third, I'm not homeless, and I don't drink out of a brown paper bag. But I would bring a 2-4 to a party, and my girlfriends would get all excited, be like, ooh, Lisa bought beer. And I'm like, well, I bought beer for me. I don't know what you guys are drinking. And I'd sit on that case of beer, and I'd go to the fridge and see what was in there first. And I'd drink your beer. That's selfish, right? I'm talking to alcoholics here. Me drinking your beer, that's selfish. So I would drink other people's beer, and then I would drink the 2-4 by myself. And that's when I also started doing stupid shit like driving drunk. I started driving drunk at the age of 16. Back then we didn't have these graded licenses. You passed that test and you were golden. I don't know if it's a miracle. I never got in a car accident. I almost hit a telephone pole once when I dropped my cigarette and I bent down to pick it up and I turned the wheel, and then when I brought my head back up, I was a few inches away from a telephone pole, but somehow I missed it. I was driving drunk so often and so frequently that it was like an art, when the vision gets blurry, you just close one eye and hope for the best. I cannot believe that I never had an accident, and I believe for me that is a divine grace because I don't know if I could have lived with that, with the guilt of harming someone else. Some people have those stories, and maybe it's the bottom that they needed to have, but thankfully that wasn't the bottom for me. So I think that's enough to say that my drinking was pretty bad, and it started at a fairly young age, and it just got worse. Drinking was my best friend in many ways because it was the solution to any problem I had. You dumped me, I drank. I didn't like my job, I drank. I didn't like what you had to say, I drank. Everything was about alcohol. I was feeling bad. A lot of it had to do with feelings. My sponsor, I don't know if he came up with this phrase. A lot of the stuff he first told me in the beginning I thought was he invented. And then I actually read the big book and found out that a lot of it comes from the first 164 pages, right? I just thought he was a genius. But he said, Lisa, your thoughts and your feelings are what's wrong with you. We're just going to take those and we're going to put them over here on a shelf for now, and you're going to shut up and you're going to do what I tell you to do. And I'm so grateful today that he did that. I've had 4 sponsors since the beginning of the program. I joined Alcoholics Anonymous in 2005, and I joined because someone else wanted me to join. That was my first mistake. But I thought, I'll just go for a little while, I'll check in, and then I'll check out, and I'll show my girlfriend at the time, things are getting better. I'm life's more manageable, and everything can carry on, and we can get back to drinking the way we used to drink. And then I got here, and you all ruined that for me.
It's funny how that
Yeah, I started to be able to, as you said in the beginning of your preamble, I started to relate. I started to identify. That took a while. At first I came in and I compared, and the comparison was, you're this way, I'm not, so I can't be an alcoholic. You have that story, mine's different. I can't be an alcoholic. I didn't want to be an alcoholic. I didn't want to stop drinking when I came in. That was the last thing on my mind. It was just to bide me some time and to get back the things that I was about to lose. My partner had kicked me out of the house. She had a child from a previous relationship, so I lost the child, I lost the house. My dog was still back there, although she'd call me when she knew I was still out partying and say, come get your dog, and then like 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm like, I can't drive, I'm drunk, which was a total lie. I drove drunk all the time. But I was selfish and self-centered. That would interrupt my drinking. So I came into the program for the wrong reasons, and I got her back. We went on a cruise. The cruise was the worst vacation I'd ever had because it was an all-inclusive, all-you-can-drink cruise. And she's with me, and I'm not supposed to be drinking. It was horrible. I hated that cruise. I was bitter. I was angry. You know the saying, restless, irritable, and discontent? I was that, walking. I was angry. But I didn't drink. That's what they call white-knuckling it. Then she got the idea that she wanted to go to Toronto and do her PhD, and I was so afraid to be alone. It wasn't about, you know, this great, wonderful relationship I had, because it was a very tumultuous relationship. I just didn't want to be alone. I had someone who was enabling me and cleaning up after me, taking care of me. And that's another reason why I didn't think my alcoholism was that bad, because I always had somebody cleaning up my messes. You know, getting me water and Tylenol by the bed and leaving me in the bathroom with a pillow under my head so I was right near the toilet where I'd spend many hours. Taking me to the hospital when my stomach needed to be pumped. So we moved, and I quit. I was in radio, and I quit a great job out on the East Coast to come to Toronto to follow this woman because I didn't want to be alone. And I was in Alcoholics Anonymous. I was around Alcoholics Anonymous. I was on the periphery. I was not in it. I wasn't doing service. I had a sponsor, but I wasn't listening to that sponsor. I wasn't calling that sponsor, and we weren't doing any work together. Once in a while, I'd show up and I'd make coffee. So yeah, as you can imagine, things went downhill. I was dry, but not sober. And she wasn't happy, and I wasn't happy, and things just got worse, and eventually I decided to call her bluff, because of course I always thought too the problem was her, it really wasn't me. So I said, things need to change around here or else I'm moving out. And she said, okay. Wait a second. That was not the answer I was hoping for. So yeah, that ended the relationship. I moved out, but I'm a needy, self-centered, selfish alcoholic, so I found an apartment across the street. That way I could keep an eye on things. And then if she wanted me back, because she'd soon realize what she was missing out on, I'd be nice and close, and I could move my stuff over in a shopping cart. I moved to Toronto, as I said, and I didn't have any prospects, so I had been in and out of small radio jobs here, you know, part-time overnight jobs, the shitty shift on 102.1 The Edge, which is midnight to 5:30. Nobody's listening but other alcoholics, but guess what? I'm not relatable anymore because I don't drink and I don't do drugs. So it was a shitty show, sorry. So it was tough. We didn't stay together. I was alone and miserable, and then I thought, you know what? I stopped drinking for her. Why the hell am I sober? This didn't work out. I didn't get anything I wanted out of this deal. You know, my radio career's gone to the toilet. I've got nothing to show for it. I might as well drink, because that old friend was always there for me when things were tough. So, but I'm going to prove I'm not an alcoholic. So I go out to the bar, I leave my credit card and my bank card at home, and I only take $20. And that way, I can only have a couple drinks. And I proved to myself, that scientific experiment, I'm not an alcoholic because I only have a couple drinks and then I go home. But I'm not talking to anybody, I'm not socializing with anybody. I can't wait to get home because there's more alcohol at home and I can drink at home. So now my disease has progressed and I drink at home alone. I'd never done that before. But I did that for a few months, and that was enough evidence for me to prove that I wasn't an alcoholic. So then I started to take my bank card and my credit cards with me, and guess what? I found that I couldn't stop. Once I started and I had the means, I would just drink until I blacked out. And I didn't know that term. I didn't know what that meant, although it was happening long before I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. You guys taught me what that term actually meant. That was the gaps in my life that I couldn't, I'd have to, get people to tell stories, and then I'd be like, oh, yeah, I remember that. I didn't remember any of that. So yeah, it took a turn for the worse, and I went to this former radio station. They invited me back to their Christmas party, and when I had worked there, I had been sober. And when I went back for this Christmas party, I was now alone and drinking, and that was a terrible night. I made out with my former boss, a guy, with his wife standing right next to him at the bar. So those horrible, embarrassing things got worse. All of a sudden, I hit that wall, and it's like, I gotta get out of here. Because pretty soon, I'm losing things. I'm losing track of time, and I won't know where I am. So I jump on the subway, and I was all dressed up. And needless to say, the outfit didn't make it home safely in one piece in a nice condition. I was covered head to toe in my own mess. I fell off of the subway platform at the wrong station, was waiting for the train to catch the next train, and I passed out and blacked out on, I don't know if you know, there's this yellow line that is the caution line, and I'm on that, out cold. And the thing that wakes me up every 2 minutes is the train rushing into the station. And I come to a little bit, and when I open my eyes, I'm so drunk. You know the expression blind drunk? I now know what that feels like. You can open your eyes, but you see nothing. Your blackout vision is gone. And some guy picked me up off the platform and said, "Do you need help?" And I don't know what this man looks like today. I don't know who he is. I just heard a voice. And I said, yes. He said, you need an ambulance? And I said, no. I needed an ambulance, but again, the defiant alcoholic, no, just get me home. And he got me home. And I think he even took my dog out for a pee, because there wasn't a mess there when I woke up the next, other than my mess. The dog didn't mess the apartment, I messed the apartment. And that's when I called an old sponsor of mine and I said,